All right, get ready, because we're going to take a deep dive into British farming today. Specifically, we're looking at the outlook for livestock and feed in 2024 and 2025. We're talking feed costs, those crazy fertilizer prices, and even straw. It's all connected in ways you might not expect. We've got the latest AHDB market outlook report, and I got to tell you, some fascinating trends are emerging. Imagine you're a farmer in the UK right now. You're planning for the next couple of seasons. What's keeping you up at night?
Well, the cost of feed for your livestock is definitely top of mind. That's where the AHDB report gets really interesting. Overall feed demand is up, but it's not as simple as just everyone needs more,
Oh, okay, so there's a twist. I love a good twist. Give me the details.
What's fascinating is that the increase is mainly driven by cattle and sheep. We're looking at a year-on-year increase of 112,000 tons for cattle feed. And sheep feed demand. That's jumped by a huge 19%.
Wow, that's a serious spike. So is everyone suddenly craving lamb and beef? What's behind those numbers?
It's more about economics than appetites. Lower feed and energy costs mean better margins for farmers, especially in dairy. When production costs go down, farmers can expand their herds and produce more. Makes sense, right?
Right, yeah, absolutely. But you said it wasn't as simple as everyone needing more feed. So what's the flip side?
Well, here's where it gets really interesting. While cattle and sheep feed demand is booming, demand for poultry and pig feed is actually down. Remember those bird flu outbreaks? They hit the poultry sector pretty hard. And then there's the shrinking pig herd in the UK. Fewer pigs mean less demand for pig feed.
So it's like two different stories playing out at the same time. Some farmers are ramping up production, while others are facing some real challenges. It really highlights how interconnected everything is, doesn't it?
Yeah, it really does. And it makes you think, if maize prices go up as predicted, will we see a shift back to other grains? Will this create opportunities for other grain producers? It's constantly evolving.
So let's zoom in on the feed itself. What are the ingredients looking like these days? Are farmers sticking to the classic recipe, or are there any new trends popping up?
Think of it as a giant recipe book for animal feed, and some of the pages are getting dog-eared, while others are gathering dust. We're seeing an increase in the use of cereals, particularly maize.
Why is maize so popular all of a sudden? Is it the new kale?
It's not about trends, it's about the bottom line. Maize is simply cheaper right now. But, and this is a big but, maize prices are predicted to rise later in the season. So this reliance on maize might be short-lived. Farmers are always adapting to these price fluctuations.
So it's a bit of a gamble. Stock up on the cheap maize now, but be prepared for the prices to jump later on.
Yeah, exactly. And while maize is having its moment, there's another ingredient that's becoming scarce: oilseed rape meal. Its use in feed is down about 5%, and that's directly tied to the limited supply of oilseed rape overall.
So we've got fluctuating demand for different types of feed, and the actual ingredients in the feed are changing too. So what does this all mean for the overall cost of feeding livestock? That's what farmers really care about at the end of the day, right?
Absolutely. And this is where the global context comes in. The global grain market is facing a deficit, driven partly by reduced maize production and partly by the slowdowns in exports from the Black Sea region, because of the ongoing conflict in Ukraine.
Right, yeah. The ripple effect of that conflict is being felt far and wide, isn't it?
It is. And the AHDB predicts this grain deficit will lead to higher feed grain prices in the medium term.
Oof. Not the news farmers want to hear. It sounds like a real balancing act, managing these rising feed costs while also dealing with the shifts in demand and ingredients we've been talking about.
It's a complex equation for sure, and It doesn't stop there. We also need to talk about oilseed prices. It's a mixed bag on that front.
Okay, so let's unpack that mixed bag. What are we looking at?
Well, on one hand, rapeseed prices are high right now, again, because of that limited supply we talked about. But the long-term outlook is a bit more uncertain. We're expecting a large influx of soybeans from Brazil, which could ease the pressure on prices. And then there's the wild card of potential U.S. tariffs.
Tariffs, huh? Sounds like those could throw a wrench in the works.
They could indeed. To sum it up nicely, here's a quote from Jess Corsair, a senior economist at AHDB. While cereal inclusion in feed rations will likely remain steady, the global grain market's bullish trends could increase feed prices. However, the bearish outlook for oilseeds and the potential for higher soybean supplies may limit price increases in the longer term.
So some potential ups and downs ahead. But, feed is only one part of the equation when it comes to livestock farming. What about fertilizer? Weren't prices going through the roof last year?
They were. But there is a bit of good news on that front. The fertilizer market has seen some stabilization in 2024. Those crazy price hikes we saw in 2022 and 2023, driven by the energy crisis in Europe and domestic supply issues, they've calmed down a bit.
That's a relief. So does that mean things are back to normal? Can farmers finally breathe easy?
Well, not quite. While prices have settled, they're still higher than they were before all the craziness started. So it's a step in the right direction, but there's still some uncertainty lingering in the air.
Uncertainty seems to be the theme of the day. So if prices are still high, has that impacted the demand for fertilizer at all?
Well, interestingly, demand for nitrogen fertilizer in Great Britain actually went up by 4% in 2023. And that's despite the uncertainty in the market.
Wow, that's surprising. Why would demand go up if prices are still high?
It seems farmers saw the slight dip in prices as an opportunity to stock up. Remember those peaks we talked about? Prices have come down from those highs, so farmers may have taken advantage.
Ah, so a bit of strategic buying. That makes sense. But it's not just the overall demand that's shifted, right? You mentioned there were changes in how nitrogen is being used as well. Tell me more about that.
Well, we're seeing a slight increase in the amount of nitrogen used per hectare, mainly due to increased applications of straight nitrogen. The use of compound nitrogen, on the other hand, has remained fairly stable.
Okay, so a bit of a shift in application methods. Are there any specific types of nitrogen fertilizer that are gaining or losing favor?
Absolutely. We're seeing an increase in the use of urea and urea ammonium nitrate, UAN, for short, while the use of ammonium nitrate, AN, and calcium ammonium nitrate, KN, has actually declined. It's fascinating how these trends shift based on price, availability, and even farmer preference.
It's like a complex dance, trying to figure out the best mix of fertilizers in a constantly changing market. So we've got these somewhat stable fertilizer prices, but with that underlying uncertainty about what the future holds. What's the average price looking like these days for, say, AN fertilizer?
Well, AN fertilizer averaged around $336 per ton in 2024. That's a significant drop from the prices we saw in previous years.
That does sound like good news, at least for now.
It is, but here's the catch. The lack of transparency in fertilizer markets makes it really difficult to predict what's going to happen next. There are so many variables at play.
Ugh, more uncertainty. It's enough to make your head spin.
I know, right? And there are some specific things to keep an eye on. Instability in the Red Sea region, for example, could really disrupt supply chains. Then there are potential issues with natural gas supply, which obviously impacts fertilizer production. And of course, we can't forget about the ongoing war in Ukraine and its potential to disrupt global markets.
It's like a giant web, and if you tug on one strand, the whole thing shakes.
That's a great analogy. And remember, fertilizer prices are heavily influenced by both global crop prices and energy costs. If those start to fluctuate, fertilizer prices are likely to follow suit.
So another layer of complexity for farmers to navigate. Are there any other potential challenges on the horizon that they should be aware of? Anything else lurking out there that could impact their bottom line?
There is one. It's a bit of a mouthful, but it's important. It's called the Carbon Border Adjustment Mechanism.
Whoa, that sounds intense. Break it down for me. What is this carbon border adjustment mechanism and why should farmers care?
Essentially, the UK government is considering implementing a carbon border adjustment mechanism, or CBAM, for short, starting in 2027.
Okay, and what does that mean in practical terms? How will it affect farmers?
Well, the CBAM is designed to put a price on the carbon emissions associated with imported goods. And guess what? It's a major input in fertilizer production.
Let me guess, energy.
You got it.
Yeah.
So if the CBAM is implemented, it could actually push fertilizer prices back up again. It's something for farmers to keep a close eye on as we move towards 2027.
It seems like just when farmers get a bit of breathing room on one issue, another one pops up. It's a never-ending challenge. But before we get too bogged down in doom and gloom, there's one more topic I want to touch on, and it's a bit of a surprising one.
Oh, I'm intrigued. What is it?
Straw.
Straw. You mean the stuff farmers use for bedding?
That's the one. I know it might not sound like the most exciting topic, but trust me, it's causing quite a stir in the UK agricultural scene. The straw market is facing some serious challenges: tight supply, fluctuating prices, and a whole lot of uncertainty about what the future holds.
Well, you've certainly piqued my curiosity. Tell me more about this straw saga. What's driving this unexpected shortage?
I'd be happy to. But first, let's take a quick moment to hear a word from our sponsors. Okay, so we're back and ready to unpack this whole straw situation. It's not something you hear about every day, right? A straw shortage. But it's a real issue impacting UK farmers. And as we've already seen, everything in agriculture is connected. So let's break it down. What's going on?
Let's start with the basics. Supply and demand. You mentioned tight supply, price volatility. What's at the root of that?
Well, it's a combination of factors, but it all boils down to less straw being produced. One culprit is the shrinking acreage dedicated to crops like wheat and barley. Less land for those crops means less straw left over after harvest. It's simple math, really.
And that reduced acreage, that's happening for various reasons, right? Changes in government policy. Or maybe market forces are pushing farmers towards different crops. It's a reminder that land use decisions are incredibly complex. They have a ripple effect that extends far beyond a single field.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. And as if that wasn't enough, the weather hasn't exactly been cooperating. Variability in weather patterns, especially dry conditions in some areas, have also impacted straw yields. So it's a double whammy for farmers who rely on straw for bedding, feed, or even as a source of income.
So less straw overall because of land use and weather. Okay, that explains the tight supply. But what about those price fluctuations you mentioned? I imagine it's gotten pretty unpredictable for farmers trying to plan ahead.
Oh, absolutely. Prices have been all over the place, which just adds another layer of stress for farmers who are already dealing with so much uncertainty. Wheat and barley straw prices, which usually follow similar trends, have been behaving quite erratically in 2024.
Really? Were there any particularly dramatic price spikes? Any moments that really caught people's attention?
Barley straw, in particular, commanded quite a premium for a while. It was almost like the designer's straw of the season.
Interesting. Was there a reason for barley straw being in such high demand?
It seems that the limited supply of barley straw coincided with a higher overall quality compared to wheat straw. So you had this perfect storm of scarcity and quality, which drove up the price. Farmers who needed that high-quality straw for specific purposes, like bedding for certain livestock, they were really feeling the pinch.
So we've got this perfect storm of factors leading to a straw shortage. Is this just a temporary blip, or is it something farmers should be worried about in the long term?
That's the big question, isn't it? And unfortunately, the outlook for 2025 isn't particularly rosy. Winter cropping, which is a major source of straw, is expected to decline even further. And as for spring-sown crops, well, they're always at the mercy of the weather. So it's hard to predict how much straw they'll yield.
So the possibility of even less straw in 2025. Not exactly a comforting thought. Are there any potential bright spots? Anything that could help ease this shortage? I imagine farmers are getting creative, resourceful, finding solutions.
Oh, they are. Some are exploring alternative bedding materials, like wood shavings or shredded paper. Others are being more strategic with their straw use, making sure to prioritize those essential needs. And of course, there's always the option of important straw, though that comes with its own set of costs and logistical challenges.
Right. Important adds another layer of complexity and expense. It's not a perfect solution. So it seems like adaptability is key here.
Absolutely. Farmers are used to dealing with unpredictable weather, market fluctuations. But this straw shortage, it adds another layer of complexity, and it really highlights just how interconnected the whole agricultural system is. Changes in one area can have ripple effects throughout the entire sector.
I'm curious, is there any talk of government intervention? Could policies be put in place to encourage straw production or maybe regulate prices?
That's a great question, and one that's being debated right now. Some argue that government support is needed to stabilize the straw market and protect farmers from these huge price swings. Others believe that the market will eventually self-correct and that government intervention could create unintended consequences. It's a complex issue with no easy answers.
It really underscores the need for careful consideration and a nuanced approach to policymaking.
Absolutely. But beyond the policy debates, I think there's something really inspiring about how farmers are responding to this challenge. They're not just throwing their hands up in defeat. They're finding creative solutions, adapting their practices, and supporting each other. It's a testament to their resilience and their deep connection to the land.
I completely agree. It's a reminder that agriculture is more than just a business. It's a way of life, a community, a deep-rooted tradition that has weathered countless storms over the centuries.
You know, while we've been focusing on the challenges of the UK agricultural outlook, I think it's important to shift gears now and talk about potential solutions. What steps can farmers and policymakers take to address these issues and ensure a more stable and sustainable future for UK agriculture? So we've talked about all the challenges UK farmers are facing, from those rising feed costs to that surprising straw shortage. But let's shift gears a bit and explore some potential solutions. What can farmers actually do, to navigate these uncertain times? What can they do to build more resilience into their operations?
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question. And I gotta say, there's no silver bullet, no one-size-fits-all solution.
Yeah.
But there are definitely several key strategies that farmers can consider.
Okay, all right, give me the rundown. What's that first step on the road to resilience?
Well, I think it always comes back to information. Information is power. Staying up to date on those market trends, policy changes, and technological advancements, that's crucial. Farmers need to be informed to make the best decisions for their businesses. Reports like this one from AHDB, the one we've been discussing, those are a great starting point.
Yeah, this whole deep dive wouldn't be possible without those reports,
Yeah.
They're a valuable resource for anyone who wants to understand the bigger picture of UK agriculture.
Absolutely. And beyond just staying informed, I think diversification is key.
Diversification, you mean growing a wider variety of crops or raising different types of livestock, spreading the risk.
Exactly. Relying too heavily on a single crop or livestock type, it can make a farm vulnerable to market fluctuations or disease outbreaks. Diversifying operations creates a lot more stability and flexibility.
It's like that old saying, right? Don't put all your eggs in one basket.
Precisely. And diversification goes beyond what you grow or raise. It can also involve exploring alternative income streams, things like agritourism, renewable energy production, or even on-farm processing. These can add value to existing products and diversify income.
So it's all about thinking outside that traditional farming box, embracing new opportunities.
I agree. And speaking of thinking outside the box, technology and innovation offer huge potential. Precision farming techniques can help optimize input use, reduce waste, and just improve overall efficiency.
I've heard a lot about precision farming, using sensors and data to make informed decisions, about everything from planting to fertilizing. It really sounds like the future of agriculture.
It really is. And that's just one example. Robotics, artificial intelligence, vertical farming. There are so many exciting advancements in agricultural technology. By adopting these innovations, farmers can really boost their productivity and reduce their environmental impact.
Now that's a win-win. Sustainable farming is essential for the environment and for meeting consumer demand.
Absolutely. More and more, I think we're recognizing farmers not just as food producers, but as environmental stewards as well.
Okay, so we've talked about what individual farmers can do, but what about the role of policymakers? How can they support UK agriculture and help farmers navigate these, kind of turbulent times?
Policymakers need to create a stable and predictable policy environment. Constant policy shifts, unclear regulations, these make it impossible for farmers to plan ahead.
Yeah, it's tough to invest in your farm or adopt new technologies when you don't even know what the rules are going to be next year.
Exactly. Policy stability is crucial. And alongside that, investment in agricultural research and development is vital. Supporting innovation in areas like crop breeding, pest management, soil health, that can help farmers become more productive, more efficient, and more sustainable.
So it's about giving farmers the tools and knowledge they need to really thrive.
Precisely. Another critical role for policymakers is facilitating access to markets, promoting British agricultural products both domestically and internationally.
Oh, that's a great point. Connecting farmers with buyers, showcasing the quality of British produce that can boost demand and create new opportunities for growth.
Absolutely. And let's not forget about supporting new entrants into the farming sector. Attracting young people, fostering the next generation of farmers, that's crucial for the long-term health of UK agriculture.
So it's about supporting existing farmers while also paving the way for the new ones.
Yeah. It's about building a resilient and sustainable agricultural system, one that can not only withstand challenges, but also thrive for generations to come.
Well said. We've covered a lot of ground today, but I think the key takeaway is clear. UK agriculture is facing some very real challenges, but there are also immense opportunities for innovation, collaboration, and resilience.
I agree. And the key for both farmers and policymakers is to embrace that spirit of innovation and collaboration, working together to build a brighter future for British agriculture.
And to our listeners out there, whether you're a farmer, a policymaker, or just someone who cares about where their food comes from, we'll leave you with this question. With so many factors at play, what innovative solutions can you envision to help UK agriculture not just survive, but truly thrive in the years to come?